Hello everybody and welcome to CFO Conversations. I'm your host Paula Kensington and I have the pleasure of welcoming Henrik and Alison to our conversation in this series 10, and we're talking about sustainability and what as CFOs we should be thinking about, what we should be doing and how we can drive the conversation and the action that is absolutely needed. Our last conversation in this series is about, first of all, about how we bridge the gap between regulators and commercial business, and how do finance professionals kind of struggle with this conversation. But and I think we can touch on that because that's one of the reasons why I created this series, because in certain aspects, as finance professionals, we look to our regulators, we look to our accounting profession to help us, to guide us. And so I think, I'm always thinking about what's IFAC doing, what's ACCA doing, what's CAA and Z doing, what is CPA doing, and, how do we drive those conversations? But just before we get started, I also want to touch on the challenge that we have ahead of us. So sustainability, people think if we can be sustainable, then, we can save the planet. I know in Australia, that's not the case. We've gone past the ability to save our part of the planet because we've gone way too far off in the deep end and we can't pull it back by just being sustainable. And so if this is new concepts to you, don't be surprised, because up until about 18 months ago, it was probably new to me. But this is where regenerative business comes in, and regenerative means being able to give back into the value chain, into communities, into the planet, into people. What can we do that's actually giving back rather than extracting? And so that's kind of my attempt at regenerative. But, I think when I talk to finance professionals about regenerative, I don't think I've spoken to many who actually have even heard of the term. So I know that this is something that we need to really get our arms around. And so we start with the sustainability because that's now being mandated that we have to care about it, whether or not CFOs care about it. Well, we have to, because we're reporting about how we care about it. And so, I think we've talked about finance professionals like taking a bit of ownership here, because, we've all had an impact. We all have an impact. So, it's about how do the CFOs take ownership to be able to make a small difference within their own business, within their own reporting, within their own conversations, so that, as a community, as a profession, we're actually leading the conversation. So this is probably, a bit outside of the CFO norm. It's not about financial performance. It's not about not just risk management, but it's actually about sustainability. Maybe it's even that chief value officer that we did hear about, 5-10 years ago, people started talking about chief value officer and no one really never really caught on. But I think the large part of the CFO's role is about understanding and being able to measure value, which is not easy, right?
That might be worth a new attempt a decade later to see if it works. I think it would probably work better this time. And this is sort of new. Regenerative is new to me. I mean, I know what the word means as such, but how, and you can sort of define it as being sustainable is not making things worse, and regenerate is sort of making things better. It's sort of the doctor's oath of do no harm. That's the first step, and then you figure out what you can do to make things better. But it's not an easy one. I mean, I've been in businesses where there's donations and contributions to different causes, but I'm not sure how sort of strategic it has been as part of a broader strategy about this. I mean, as far as listening to you, how you've educated yourself in this area, now I feel like I have to go and do some research because because I've seen this done, and I've mentioned before, like in terms of manufacturing on this point solutions to certain things. But as a whole, what would it mean for us to be a regenerative business? That's not an easy question to answer, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, Alison, you are working with Arup, so you're in a a different place where you're supported by a business that cares about regenerative. I'd love to hear any more that you can share with that.
Yeah, and I think it is still new for a lot of us, but I think where it translates well for me is hearing from our engineers and consultants about some of the complex challenges they're having to solve for clients. So I think nowadays it's not a case of knock down an existing structure. Clients are coming saying, well, what can we do to restore this? Say it's a building, like what can we do to restore the building, make it more energy efficient, look at the whole maintenance and full project life cycle.
Yeah.
And that for me is what regeneration's about.
Yeah.
We often have our children also around us to kind of prompt that thinking, what does regeneration mean in our own personal lives? And that is a way for me to translate it into the business world. But yeah, Arup's certainly facing into these challenges all the time. It's clients want to understand, well, yeah, what can we do differently that helps serve this higher purpose?
Yeah.
I guess that's a good point on timing in children, like in terms of it's the time horizon that looking at quarterly results and may not, it doesn't make any difference when you look at it quarter by quarter, but if you look at over 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, it's but that's the time horizon you have to have, which is also, people spend 2, 3, 4 years in roles. They like to see some payback on what they're investing their time in. And this is one of those, small paybacks, takes a long time. It's hard to convince people to invest their time in those things. But I think as in, a lot of sort of for your own body, nutrition, health, I think every good decision has short-term pain and long-term gain, and every bad decision is the other way around.
Yeah.
It's the similar thing.
Yeah, totally. And I'm actually on day 16 of a total body detox.
There we go.
That's why I'm glowing, because and that was driven because I wanted to have another 25 years of good brain health. So, and I don't know, it's got to land for you individually. You can't be told, oh, you need to go and look at your diet, or you need to become vegan, or, you need to have a think about choices that you're making in life. You've got to kind of get there on your own steam. But that's what I'm trying to help the CFO community by demonstrating what people are doing, so that they can kind of go, oh, that's interesting. So your point exactly. Now I'm hearing about what you and Alison are doing. I want to educate myself.
Yeah.
So if I can get 10% of my community to say exactly that, then that's a huge success for this conversation. I've been doing some work with WWF, and so that's how I've kind of, again, deepened my curiosity around regenerative business, because they're the world body that saves animals, right? And now here they are in Australia, where they've created a $2 million fund where small regenerative business projects come to them, give them the business case. And I've been on a curating panel as a finance expert to assess these businesses in a regenerative way, which means kind of, mentoring and, asking the potential questions. And so now I'm exposing myself to small projects that are going to potentially lead the way on what does regenerative business look like. So I think, we're all Sydney based. There's a part of them there's a part of that project that's Regen Sydney, and there's Regen Melbourne, and I think there's Regen Adelaide. And there wants to be some of this project, they want to create community, and all the experts in those communities need to bring together the value that we all bring. And so that then pays back to the community, which, has this impact, that everyone's doing better.
Yeah, and I think the more you can get involved and understand what it means to the person on the street, so to speak, the better. I think I've certainly benefited from that, and just injecting myself in that learning space as I said, motivated by a young teenager at home too. That always helps to think, what are we going to do to take personal responsibility, which then rolls up into corporate responsibility, right? So
yeah. Okay, well, thank you both for sharing your time with me to record these conversations, and I'm really excited to be able to share them with our community, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get lots of engagement and lots of questions, and I feel like there's another series that's short on the back of this one around how do we answer some of those questions. So thank you both for the conversation.
All right, thank you.